How not to screw up your sale. That's today's topic on the American Landman. Okay, well, I got your attention. How not to screw up your sale. Well, that's a topic that we don't talk about very often, but I can tell you, I've got so many stories of how a seller screws up his sale. And if you're a buyer and you've been looking for a property, you're going to relate to this. So let's talk about it. How not to screw up your sale. Well, I'll tell you what, probably the most important thing to selling your land at top value is communication. Find the right agent and communicate with them. Share everything you can about a property. When I come out and I sit down with you and we talk about listing your property, I'm going to have you fill out some things. Two things that are so important is the vacant land disclosure and the real estate condition report. A state-approved form. It's going to go through about 25 to 30 questions, and they're going to ask you everything from, is there a funky smell on your property? Is there erosion? To, do you have a fight with your neighbor? You want to disclose everything you can about your property. Hide nothing. So sometimes you're thinking, I don't know if this is important, right? And you don't want to like tell your realtor everything because, I don't know if that's that important. It's not going to affect the sale. Nobody else knows about that but me, but I could tell you from experience. Today's buyers are really smart. I recently had a sale, and the buyer was a savvy young guy. You millennials, you guys are the smartest buyers out there. I think people kick you around and say, millennials aren't that smart. No. These guys are some of the smartest generation because they're so good with research. And these days, everything is on the internet. You can find anything. And what this buyer did was he went and he started researching. He first started asking questions from all the neighbors. Then he went to the township, and then he went into some websites, and he started digging up information. He started coming back to me, and the first thing he found was, hey, who manages this road coming down to this property? And I'm like, well, I don't know. There's no homeowners association. I hadn't even thought about it. I think it's the township. And he says, well, you know what? I did a little digging, and it appears that the seller that this guy had bought from, the former guy, was a developer, and he developed it, and he never formed the HOA. And there's a little bit of controversy around who's going to care for this road. And then I'm like, well, I'll go find out. So I went back to and I got the rest of the story from the seller, and we updated the disclosures, and we thought we were good. Then the next thing was, there appears to be an access, an easement here. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know about any easement. I haven't been told about any easement. He goes, yeah, I went to a surveyor who knows this area, and he says, yeah, there's an easement, but I think it's walk-in only. What do you know about that? And I went back to my seller, and I said, well, you never told me about an easement. Where's this easement? It's not showing up in any of my maps. He goes, oh yeah, there's an easement. It's a walk-in only though. No, it's a 33-foot easement, and it comes in and goes to the property, and the buyer, this millennial, was going, no, it's a walk-in only. And I'm like, well, I don't know about it at all, so let me get back to you and I'll go ask the seller, and I'll get some more information. So then I go back to the seller, and I'm like, okay, you didn't tell me about this defunct HOA lawsuit that might be happening, or maybe it's not happening. You didn't tell me about this easement that might be a 33-foot wide easement, or it might be a walk-in easement. It's like, what else have you told me about this property? Well, the moral of all this is that as I was digging through all this stuff, discovering all this stuff that the seller could have simply told me about, the confidence of my buyer was slowly eroding away. I mean, it got to the point where he thought it was me. He thought I was holding things back. And I had to have some strong conversations with, look, I don't know every detail, and I can't spend hours upon hours sitting in a county courthouse digging. I just don't have the time. We're going to discover all this when we do our title searches, but it would have been so helpful to know this on the front end. So the lesson here is, if you're a seller and you're selling your property, don't hold anything back. Tell me everything. Disclose everything. Let me determine if it's important with the buyer. Let the buyer determine, because sometimes it's not that big a deal. But the fact that you didn't tell him in the first place leads them to get a little suspicious. It kind of takes the fun out of the buying process. They don't know what you're not telling them. What else don't I know? So be forthright. Come forward, tell us everything, just disclose it. Let the buyer determine their own emotions about things that you may not think are important at all. That's the best policy. So I hope you found that interesting. Hit that like button down there, guys, right now. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and become a follower. I appreciate that you follow me. This video, this vlog is about buying, managing, and selling American land. I'd like to be your guy in the land business. I'm Neil Hogger, and I'm a land specialist with Whitetail Properties Real Estate, and you've been watching The American Landman.